Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something really cool. We are decoding the incredibly sophisticated pharmacology behind ceremonial cacao, pulling research straight from the OTW journal. If you've ever had real ceremonial cacao, you already know it's something truly special. But today, we're not just talking about that subjective, warm, fuzzy feeling. We are getting into the hard science of exactly how this works inside your body.
So let's dive right in by asking the central mystery pretty much every practitioner encounters. Why does a simple little bean produce such profound emotional openness and warmth? People constantly say it feels like magic, like the world is suddenly turned up a few degrees. The music sounds richer, and you just feel this undeniable sense of connection. But as we're going to see, there's absolutely no magic here. It is just incredibly elegant pharmacological architecture.
So, Section 1, the heart-opening mystery. To crack this case, we have to start with that exact phenomenon, that heart-opening effect practitioners have talked about for literally millennia. But getting to that feeling isn't easy. That brings us to our biochemical toll gate. Because before we can understand how cacao opens the heart, we gotta meet the incredibly strict gatekeeper standing in the way.
Meet monoamine oxidase, or just MAO for short. You can think of MAO as a ruthless biological bouncer living right there in your gut wall and your liver. Its main gig is basically neurotransmitter housekeeping. It relentlessly shreds feel-good chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, and a traceamine called PEA long before they ever get a chance to reach your brain. Now, without MAO, our neurotransmitter levels would totally spiral out of control, so it's doing an important job. But it's also the exact reason a regular piece of chocolate doesn't feel like a ceremony.
And this bouncer is no joke. Because of this MAO toll gate, the oral bioavailability of PEA, which is often called the love chemical, is normally less than 1%. Yep, less than 1%. So when people say chocolate makes us feel good because of PEA, well, the hard truth is, under normal conditions, MAO destroys almost all of the PEA you eat before it can ever cross into your bloodstream.
And get this, even if a tiny, lucky little fraction of that PEA does survive your gut, its half-life in your blood is a measly 5 to 10 minutes. It's a total flash in the pan. The MAO system is just so incredibly efficient that the biochemical party is over before you even realize it started.
Which leads us to cacao's hidden pharmacology. If MAO destroys all the good stuff, how does ceremonial cacao bypass this gatekeeper?
Well, the answer lies in its secret weapons, tetrahydroharmine, harmine, and norharmine. These are what we call beta-carboline alkaloids. And hey, if you study traditional plant medicines, those names probably ring a bell, because they're the exact same class of MAO-inhibiting compounds that make the famous Amazonian brew ayahuasca work. In ayahuasca, they protect DMT. In cacao, they're doing the exact same thing to protect our body's own endogenous feel-good chemicals, just acting at a much gentler, lower intensity.
Basically, these beta-carbolines act like a temporary VIP pass that totally distracts the MAO bouncer. The scientific term for this is RIMA, reversible inhibition of MAO-A. Older pharmaceutical MAO inhibitors were irreversible, which caused some pretty dangerous side effects, like the dreaded cheese effect, where eating aged cheese or cured meats could dangerously spike your blood pressure. But RIMA? It's competitive and temporary. It safely blocks the enzyme, sneaks the good stuff through, and naturally wears off in a few hours without any of those extreme dietary restrictions.
All right, on to the arrival of the love chemical. Let's see what's actually happening in your body when those biochemical gates are finally propped open. With MAO temporarily distracted, that love chemical PEA finally survives its perilous journey through your gut and hits your dopamine reward center. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. Did you know 90 to 95% of your body's serotonin is actually produced right in your gut? Normally, MAO degrades that peripheral serotonin incredibly fast. But now, thanks to cacao's beta-carbolines, that degradation just completely stops.
And this right here is exactly what ceremony leaders mean when they talk about the profound feeling of dropping into the heart. For the longest time, people just brush that off as a pretty spiritual metaphor. But modern neuroscience shows us it's not just poetry.
It is a literal neurological reality. See, as that gut serotonin spikes, it binds to your vagus nerve. Think of those vagal nerve fibers as a sensory superhighway, carrying signals straight up from your gut into your brain's emotional center. That intense upward signaling physically manifests as a spreading warmth right in your chest. Because your heart is packed with those vagal nerve endings, the feeling of your heart literally opening is a direct, measurable pharmacological event.
Moving on to the psilocybin synergy. This MAO inhibition also perfectly explains a deeply historical Mesoamerican pairing that's getting a ton of attention lately.
When you combine cacao synergistically with psilocybin, it kicks off this beautiful pharmacological dance. First, psilocybin converts into its active form, psilocin. Normally, MAOA works to clear that psilocin out of your system. But those beta-carbolines from the cacao step in and subtly block MAA, really slowing down that clearance. So not only does it extend the peak of the experience, but because your serotonin and PEA are also elevated, it completely shifts the vibe from purely cerebral and cognitive to something deeply grounded and heart-centered.
So, ceremonial versus commercial cacao. At this point, you're probably thinking, why can't I just grab a normal chocolate bar at the grocery store and get all these amazing benefits?
Well, it entirely comes down to processing. Ceremonial-grade cacao is minimally roasted and stone-ground, which crucially keeps its full alkaloid matrix completely intact. Commercial cocoa powder, on the other hand, goes through heavy Dutch processing. That means it's hit with alkali to neutralize acidity and make the color look nice. But that aggressive processing literally annihilates the beta-carbolines and destroys the active chemistry. It totally breaks the pharmacology. It's essentially the decaf of the cacao world.
So putting all the pieces together, we can really see that true ceremonial cacao is this incredible, unaltered symphony. You've got the beta-carbolines handling the MAO inhibition. You've got theobromine bringing that smooth cardiovascular warmth. PEA is triggering dopamine release, and anandamide is even activating your endocannabinoid system. When you leave the whole bean intact, all these compounds work together in perfect concert, creating an experience that is just so much bigger than the sum of its parts. This beautifully targeted, multi-mechanism psychoactivator just perfectly proves that ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience are telling the exact same awe-inspiring story. Indigenous practitioners understood these effects way before anyone had the microscopes to actually see the molecules. And honestly, it leaves us with such a fascinating question to chew on. If a simple cacao bean holds this much complex pharmacological genius, what other ancient medicines are out there just waiting to be scientifically decoded? Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and keep questioning the science behind the magic.